Do you struggle to make your colour tattoos pop and they always turn out dull and muddy looking? Then you could be making this really common and easy to fix mistake. So coming up in this video, not only am I going to be showing you how to fix this problem, I'm also purposely going to be making all these mistakes and tattooing my own skin to show you where you're going wrong. Hey everyone, welcome to this video, and today I'm going to be covering a very common problem in tattooing known as staining. Now, staining is a problem that particularly affects colour tattoos and can potentially ruin the overall appearance of a really nice piece. So coming up in this video, I'm going to be covering everything you need to know about staining, what it is, how it happens, several methods on how to avoid it, the effects of staining long term on a tattoo, and then once we've learned all this, I'm going to be performing a live demonstration, tattooing my own leg and deliberately making all the mistakes that we've discussed in the video to actually show you how the ink can stain a tattoo and potentially ruin it. And then I'll be performing another tattoo with a side-by-side comparison against the one which I've messed up, but this time implementing all the corrections which we've learned in this video to show you how to avoid staining. Like most of my other videos, guys, I strongly recommend that you don't skip any part of it, and that's because the information builds on itself on each chapter, and if you were to skip, let's say, halfway through, it might not make much sense to you. So stick 8 to 10 minutes aside to get the most out of it. So with all that said, guys, let's not waste any more time and get straight into it. Simply put, staining is when two or more colours of ink mixed together on a fresh tattoo, often causing the finished result to look muddy, dull, and even sometimes create a new colour which shouldn't even be part of the original design, which ultimately leads to quite an undesirable completed tattoo and in turn an angry client. Staining can be more obvious when cold and warm colours clash, such as blue and yellow, to create a brand new colour which isn't even on the original design reference image. The most common reason for staining is when the tattooist first tattoos the skin with one colour, then switches to another colour, and then continues to tattoo another part of the design. When the excess ink of the surface of the skin is wiped away, some of that ink actually mixes with the previously tattooed skin and creates a new colour. In extreme cases, once staining has occurred, no amount of wiping down the tattoo will remove the new colour that's been created. So let's take a closer look at why this happens. Now, before we get into this, I'm just going to say for the purpose of demonstration, this example is highly exaggerated. When a tattoo needle enters the skin, it effectively creates tiny puncture holes for the ink to be seated. The body obviously begins to heal over these tiny holes to retain the ink in the skin during the healing process. But when the tattoo has just been performed, we effectively class this as an open wound, essentially meaning the body hasn't had time to completely seal up the tiny holes. So when the tattooist then switches to another colour and wipes the surface ink across the previous tattoo, that ink can actually find its way into these tiny puncture holes and in turn mixes with the previous tattooed colour to give a dull muddy effect or even create a brand new colour. As with most things, prevention is better than the cure, and this absolutely applies when talking about staining. The first tip to avoid staining is to, wherever possible, start with your darkest cold colours on your design and systematically work through them, ending with your lightest warm colours, right the way through the design, ending with white. When accidentally wiping a light warm colour over a freshly tattooed dark cold colour, staining is much less likely to occur. The next thing to consider is where you're actually wiping your excess ink. Wiping directly over a freshly tattooed part of the design will greatly increase the chances of staining the skin. To avoid this, make a conscious decision of which direction you're wiping, trying to avoid wiping over any fresh parts of the tattoo. It's usually best practice to avoid wiping altogether until at least the tattoo is completed, and instead opt for dabbing or blotting your wipe on the skin, which will only target a small specific area that you want to clean. This is also a great trick for keeping your stencil from smudging. And finally, once you've tattooed the area and are ready to tattoo another part of the design, apply a small layer of barrier cream, which you're using for the tattoo anyway, and just add a thin layer across the top of the freshly tattooed area. By doing this, even if you do accidentally get excess ink on the tattoo, the barrier cream will form a layer of protection, making it much less likely for the inks to mix in the skin, and therefore dramatically reducing the chances of staining occurring. So what are the long-term effects of staining on a healed tattoo? Well, the good news is, guys, the vast majority of the time, most staining is superficial, meaning that once the tattoo is fully healed, the stained parts usually do fall out, leaving the original colour on the tattoo under the stain. And this is because the ink that stains a tattoo design just doesn't reach the needle depth required for ink to stay in the skin. So what this essentially means is a stained tattoo will look bad when the tattoo is fresh and might obviously upset your client short term, but in the vast majority of cases, the stain will not stay in the skin. As an added piece of bonus information, staining isn't exclusive to colour tattoos and can actually occur on black and grey tattoos too, particularly when it comes to placing white highlights. It's good practice to make absolute sure that the tattoo is completed with all black ink and grey wash ink before attempting highlights. If you were to tattoo the highlights and then go back to tattooing with the blacks and grey wash, there's a strong possibility of staining the white ink that you've just tattooed, making it look grey. Okay guys, so here we go. This first tattoo I'm going to be performing, I'm going to be deliberately making all the mistakes which we spoke about in this video. So if you notice straight off, I'm using my lightest, warmest colour first. And like we spoke about, where possible, it's best to not use the lightest, warmest colours and obviously start with the darkest, coldest colours when we can. I'm just packing tight little circles in there, and it doesn't really matter where I wipe, what direction I'm wiping at the beginning, because there's no other skin that's been tattooed yet. And if you notice, there's a bit of capillary bleeding coming through there on the yellow, and that's absolutely normal. You'll see this a lot when you're using warm light colours and also whites. You'll see that pinpricks of blood coming through the design, but that stops after a couple of wipes. So now I'm packing in the cold colour. I've not put any barrier cream over the yellow to protect it, and this time when I wipe the blue, I'm going to deliberately wipe it over the fresh tattooed yellow, which I've just done. Now obviously blue and yellow make green. This is a highly exaggerated example just to put the point across, but you can see already that yellow tattoo has stained green. And with staining this bad, no amount of wiping is going to get rid of that green from the yellow tattoo now. So now with the second tattoo, I'm going to fix all the mistakes which I've previously made. So this time I put a bit of barrier cream on the skin to start, and I'm starting with my darkest, coldest colour, which in this case is the blue. And again, by starting with the cold colours, you're drastically reducing your chance of staining the skin from the off. So I'm just wiping away from any tattoos there, just wiping onto fresh skin. I'm making a conscious decision of where I'm wiping. So this time I'm applying some barrier cream to the fresh tattoo which I've just done, which will help protect it even more. And now I'm going in with my warmest, lightest colour, which is the yellow. And the reason I've done these exactly the same colours is so you can have a side-by-side comparison of just what a difference it makes when you fix these mistakes. So now I'm going to blot the yellow instead of wiping it, and this will contain all the excess ink on the design and also save your stencil if you've got a big stencil on the skin there. But if you did want to wipe it, just make a conscious decision to wipe it away from the tattoo that you've previously done. I'm also just blotting the blue again there, just tidying up any surface ink. I'm going to get a good look at it now and a close-up of it now the tattoo's been completed. And you can see the massive difference there between the one on the bottom right. You can see it's got green staining inside it already. And if this was on a big colourful design, this will be very, very noticeable. It's kind of gone like a green, but also like a dull, muddy colour. Whereas the one at the top, it's nice and vibrant. The colours are separate to each other and no staining has occurred whatsoever. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys, and if you've taken anything from this video at all, take a second out right now, smash that like button, let me know that you've liked it, because every like on the videos really does help the channel grow, and in turn it helps me create more content for you guys as subscribers. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you've already subscribed, it's really important to check that notification bell to stay up to date with all my latest uploads. So just quickly before I do go, guys, I want to say a massive thank you again to all my subscribers, new and old. We are storming towards that 100k sub club now, and I've got some extremely exciting news and a huge announcement to make about the channel very, very soon, and I can't wait to share it with you. So with all that said, guys, thanks again for watching. Thank you for supporting the channel. Thank you for making the channel grow. Let's hit that 100k sub club, and I'll see you in the next one.